And the Star Trek set, you'll be hoisted by your own Picard. Hello and welcome to JudgeCast. This is episode 372. I'm laughing at the title of this episode. I'm one of your hosts, Bryan, and I'm joined this evening, afternoon, morning drive to work by the one and only Marco Sanchez.
Hello, I'm Marco Sanchez. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, Charles could not join us.
Yep.
He is stuck in nowhere. That's a Marvel place, right?
Yeah, the big skull of a celestial that's out in the middle of, well, nowhere.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes. So, this episode, 372, is the Marvel Heroes Magic Set Release Notes Extravaganza. Marvel
Huzzah!
Superheroes. Magic the Gathering, Marvel Superheroes Release Notes. It's very important that you've got to say all of that.
You do. Because then you might get confused as to, who's doing what here. We don't want to do that.
All right. Oh, here's an interesting thing. Looking at the release notes, while it says it was published on June 12th, 2026, says it was last modified on May 14th, 2026. That means it was done a whole month in advance.
Nice.
Good on Eric. All right.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Marvel set. Everyone's favorite. We're going to be talking about Flash and Princess Diana and Kal-El.
Different cinematic universe, bud. Try the other one. The other CU.
Spawn. Angelica.
Yeah,
Eliza,
why not?
and Peggy. I'm going all over the place. Okay.
Oh
yes,
man.
No. Marvel superheroes. Man, I'm so excited to talk about this set. I'm talking about every other IP.
Look, you joke, but I would snatch up a Hamilton secret lair drop in an instant, like no question. That'd be amazing.
Who would Peggy be? I think like a Fibblethip.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Fibblethip. Like, she's here, but yeah, get out of here. You're gone. You don't matter.
All right. So Marvel Superheroes is coming out. By the time you listen to this, it'll be pre-release weekend. Real quick, as with all of this stuff, the set code MSH is the code for cards that are permitted in Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Commander, all the other formats. All right. However, there are going to be cards with a code of MSC and MAR, and those are only permitted in Commander, Legacy, and Vintage formats. However, you might, in your pack, get a card that has an MSC or an MAR set code if you are playing in a sealed format, and you can play them in there. So again, the standard disclaimer of any card that you open a pack, you can play in any format unless you can't, and you're just responsible for knowing what those are. Good luck.
Oh boy.
Okay. Again, at your pre-releases, everyone's going to get 6 packs, and we're going to go over for your head judge announcements. You probably are going to want to pick 1 or 2 things to touch on, like maybe some of the distinctions about power-up that we're going to talk about in just a minute, and touch on teamwork, and not a lot else. However, we are going to go into a lot more detail. Do not try to summarize all of this information at your head judge announcements for your pre-release.
Absolutely not. Remember, give them the minimal amount of information they need to actually start playing and having fun. And then the only other thing they need to know is if they're confused about something, raise your hand and call for a judge, and you'll come over because you listened to us go into way too much detail on this, right?
Now, one thing that's interesting, when I went to the store for the Final Fantasy pre-release and my LGS, and one thing that did catch me by surprise was the number of players that were Final Fantasy fans but had never actually played a game of Magic. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So before we actually get into actually talking about the cards and stuff like that, I would like to, and we're going off script here, what I would like to do is just, if you find yourself in a situation where a player who has showed up to your LGS for the pre-release and they are a huge Marvel fan, but they've never played a game of Magic. How do you handle that situation?
Oh, be welcoming, be open, be excited. Like, hey,
Sure, sure.
that's awesome. I'm so glad you're here. Let's figure this out, and we'll make sure you have a good time tonight.
Sure, but what is when you say let's figure it out, what does that mean? I obviously like being welcoming and stuff like that. You don't want to be like DC all the
Oh
way,
yeah.
get out of here, Marvel fan.
Oh
Take
God,
your
I could
Kree
see a judge
nonsense
doing that.
elsewhere. Yeah,
I
none of
mean,
this
sure.
gamma, get out of here. But so
But I mean, you got to assess how much they know about playing the game and also playing in the structure of a tournament. Like, they may not know that how many rounds they're going to play because they're like, what are rounds? Like, I came to show up and play some games with Marvel, but what does that mean? Maybe they've jammed some games of Magic Arena, and that's how they interact with the game at the moment because they were excited about Spider-Man when it came out. And now they're like, all right, let's go to an actual in-store pre-release, right?
My specific situation for Final Fantasy was there were out of 35, 40 players, there were 2 players that had never opened a booster pack, never played a game before.
Oh, wow.
Now, this is a situation where you want to be welcoming, you want to be understanding to that player, but you also do not want to torture and torment their opponents for 3 hours.
True.
Right? And this is something that's sometimes kind of hard to get your head around. There is being accommodating to player A, but sometimes being accommodating to player A is being unaccommodating to player B, player C, player D. Okay, if you have a cool store, you know, you, it is actually tournament fraud if you like break pairings and pair 2 people. Like if someone's like, I'll teach them. It's like, okay, that's great. Would y'all like to, like scoop to your opponents, and then we can have you teach, and maybe I'll give you a pack for teaching this person, that kind of thing. But you still don't want to engage in tournament fraud by breaking pairings and then pairing those people apart. You could also, as a judge, take time and say like, hey, and you'll give your opponent the win, and I'll spend time helping you, or something along those lines. Like, obviously your store, you have a little bit of flexibility, but what you do not want to do is have a situation where you have someone who genuinely wants to play the game and they do not want to spend the time teaching someone how to play. Okay?
That makes a
It's
lot of sense.
you're not greedy, you're not selfish, you're not being an a-hole if you go to a pre-release and you want to play against someone who at least has a handle on the basics. You're not a jerk.
True. I
Okay.
always look forward to every time I get to play in a pre-release, and it would be unfortunate if I was forced into doing something like that, and that was how I had to spend my night. Not that I wouldn't find a way to enjoy it, because, a lot of us are in that boat where we want to help people. That why else do you think we're doing this in the first place? But there's definitely a sacrifice that has to be made, and it's important to figure out where your line of what you're willing to sacrifice is.
Yeah. And that's the big thing. Like, if you have a player who is getting frustrated by being paired across a new person, like, yes, it sucks that that new person is being subjected to that frustration. However, that frustration can be a valid, I mean, is a valid response. Like, the
Yeah.
situation sucks, not that person who's frustrated. Okay. Okay, off soapbox. Let's talk about mechanics.
Yeah, that's a good one because we haven't really covered that with all the other Universes Beyond ones. But let's face it, Marvel is such a huge touchstone for a lot of people. Like, I was huge into Marvel as a kid, and growing up, if I wasn't into Magic and I saw this, I might be interested in coming back to it.
Yeah, yeah. It is very possible that there are some people that have not ever played Magic and are coming in because they're Hulk fans, Iron Man fans, Captain Marvel fans.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep, they are Earth's protector after all.
Hey, got there. So let's talk about our first mechanic of the set, and that's going to be Power Up. And that is exemplified by Captain Marvel, Earth's protector. She is a legendary creature, human Kree hero, for 3, a white and a white. She's a 5/4 with flash, flying, lifelink, and power up for 5 white. You put a +1/+1 counter and an indestructible counter on Captain Marvel. And the lovely reminder text: activate each power up ability only once. Reduce the cost by her mana cost if she entered this turn. So, you know how Exhaust was kind of a refined and polished over Monstrous? Well, Power Up is a refined and repolished Exhaust, sort of.
Sort of.
Power Up abilities are activated abilities of permanence. It's always going to be written as cost and effect with a colon in between, because that's how you know it's an activated ability. And it'll always say, if this permanent entered this turn, this ability's cost is reduced by this permanent's mana cost. And you can activate this only once. So with Captain Marvel, it's actually pretty straightforward, because you look at Captain Marvel's mana cost, 3 white, and the ability of Power Up is 5 white. So if you subtract 3 white from 5 white, you end up with 2 generic mana. So if you have played Captain Marvel this turn, you would only have to pay 2 generic mana to activate her power up ability.
It's not otherwise, if you've played Captain Marvel, it's if Captain Marvel's entered the battlefield.
Sure, yes. As long as Captain Marvel has entered this turn, then you get the discount. So have some blink shenanigans there if you want to, but generally you'll see I've cast Captain Marvel and now I'm going to activate the power up for a discount, because why the heck not? But yeah, if you blink her, if you cast her with Fist of the Suns or some other alternate casting cost, or just found a way to, move her between zones and get her onto the battlefield through one way or another, all it cares about is, did this permanent enter this turn? If so, you're getting a discount. Now, if you cast Clone and clone Captain Marvel, the power-up ability is going to see 3 white, not 3 in a blue. Because again, when you're copying a card, you're copying everything on that card, including the printed mana cost, the printed name, the printed power and toughness. The card as it exists is what you're going to have when you're checking information about that creature. So the power-up ability is going to see 3 white, not the 3 blue. Why did you put this in here? How does this work with mutate? I'm going to make you explain this one, because just no.
Okay. So how's this work with mutate? It's both kind of interesting and not really interesting at all, right? Okay. Because
that sums up mutate, yeah.
Yep. So if I have a creature with power up, okay, let's say I have Captain Marvel, Earth's Protector, and I have a creature with mutate, and I want to mutate onto Captain Marvel. Okay. I can put that mutate creature on top, and if I put the mutate creature on top, it's going to change the mana cost of the permanent for the purpose of power up. Okay, I'll get back to that in just a second. Or actually, I'll do it now. In order to get any sort of reduction or change anything, I have to have cast Captain Marvel this turn, mutated on top of it this turn to change its power and toughness, to then activate the power up ability to get the new cost reduction, all in the same turn. Or not cast it, but just like have it enter the battlefield. So you kind of got to do all that in one turn. You can't stagger it. And if I put the mutate creature on the bottom, then Captain Marvel stays on top. The creature doesn't like re-enter. Like if I've had a creature out for a couple turns and then mutate on top of it or mutate underneath of it, the creature doesn't re-enter the battlefield. It doesn't reset anything. So that's the uninteresting part. Like, yeah, you can do it, I guess. Sure, fine.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some wombo combo that somebody might have some fun with in a commander deck. Go nuts. Enjoy yourself.
I just threw out mutate because, why not?
I mean, that's the kind of corner case you're going to get a question about inevitably. And now you know the answer and can look that much more smart. So, fantastic. Yeah. And then the last thing about Power Up is that it can only be activated once per game. And some of the power-up abilities have targets. Actually, before we get into that part. So, the power-up abilities can only be activated once per game. And that's per instance of this object. So what does that mean? Let's say I have my Captain Marvel, I played the power-up ability, and then all of a sudden I decided to blink Captain Marvel for some reason or another. Well, I can now activate that power-up ability again, because it's not actually again. This is a brand new Captain Marvel. The first Captain Marvel just disappeared, and we have a new Captain Marvel here that has not had their power-up ability activated this game, so you can activate it. No big deal. Now, where this gets a little wonky sometimes is that some of the power-up abilities have targets. And if the target is removed, then the whole ability won't happen when it goes to resolve. But that doesn't mean that you didn't still activate it already. So kind of get wrecked. You can't activate it again because you've already activated it. It's all about activating it once per game, not resolving the ability once per game.
Yeah, so with the case of Abomination Terrifying Titan, it's got a power up of 5 Grill hybrid. It says put a +1/+1 counter on Abomination. He fights up to one target creature an opponent controls. If I targeted Marcos's creature and Marcos sacks that creature, I have activated my power up ability, but the ability had a single target. That target was removed, so the ability does not resolve. I do not get the counter. I do not fight. And
Nothing left to fight.
If Marcos, or if I really wanted that +1/+1 counter on if I really wanted to pay 7 mana for a +1/+1 counter on my 4/4 trample, if I really, really wanted to do that, and I wanted to be safe from any Marcos shenanigans, it says he fights up to 1 target creature. So I can choose 0 targets. And in that case, my ability requires no targets and has no targets, so I'm going to get my +1/+1 counter for the low cost of 7 mana. All right.
So
next up, teamwork makes the dream work. More hands make for less work. Whatever your motivational poster is, pitter patter. The next mechanic that we're going to talk about is teamwork. All right. So teamwork is let's illustrate that with Helicarrier Strike. Okay, is an instant for 1 white that says Teamwork 2. Helicarrier deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. If this spell was cast using Teamwork, it deals 4 damage to that creature instead. So this is a self-replacing effect. So I said it has Teamwork 2. What does Teamwork 2 mean? As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may tap any number of creatures you control with total power of 2 or more, because this is Teamwork 2. If it was Teamwork 5, it'd be total power of 5 or more. Okay, Teamwork is conceptually, it's sort of like crewing your spells. Okay,
that as weird as that sounds, that makes perfect sense,
right? Yeah, when I looked at this and I was just like, oh, because you can over crew, you can over teamwork.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
That's when you have 8 people all moving the one semi-heavy box, and it looks really awkward. But yeah, you can do it.
It's like meetings at work.
Yep.
Yep. We're all sitting on this charge. Anyway, teamwork is an additional cost that involves tapping a number of creatures you control with total power equal to or greater than the teamwork value. Okay, the teamwork additional cost is optional. However, if it is paid, then the spell is cast using teamwork. And you can overpay for teamwork. You can't pay the teamwork cost twice. So teamwork 2, I can tap my 4/4, or I could tap 2 4/4s, but I didn't teamwork and then teamwork again.
Nope.
Permanents with teamwork that are just put onto the battlefield cannot have their teamwork costs paid. Okay, so if we just put it on the battlefield, like we were talking about, just putting Captain Marvel on the battlefield, in this particular case, you can't pay the teamwork cost. And tapping a creature to pay the teamwork cost doesn't require the creature to have been on the battlefield for the whole turn. Like, you don't have to worry about something being summoning sick in order to tap it for teamwork. Okay? And if a spell or an effect allows you to cast a spell without paying its mana cost, you can still pay the additional cost, like teamwork.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Now on to the fun part of all of your favorite comics, the evil plans, including the new enchantment subtype.
Archenemy?
No, not schemes. Not schemes. That belongs in silly multiplayer land. This is hopefully going to be in Constructed, also probably going to be in CDH because everything makes it to CDH. But this is the enchantment subtype of plans.
Okay,
Baldric. So here we have construct a cosmic cube for 2 and a black. It is an enchantment plan that says whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/1 black villain creature token with menace and put a plan counter on this enchantment. When the 7th plan counter is put on this enchantment, sacrifice it. When you do, you control target opponent during their next turn. Sweet. So the enchantment subtype of plan has no real meaning, unlike Sagas, which has a whole lot of rules baggage behind it. This is more like the Shrine subtype. It's just a reference thing that other cards can refer to, and a way for you to classify a type of enchantment.
Did you just say it's a reference that other cards can refer to?
Yes.
Is my circle
Yes,
shaped? Okay.
ATM machine. Let's go.
Circular.
It's a marker. It allows them to make a reference to it in other cards without having to spell it out in 18 words when they can only use 7. So that's really it. That's plans. They all have some sort of thing that ticks up over time. Evil plan goes off, do the big bad thing, and carry on with your life.
All right. We're also getting a new predefined token type of Vibranium. And this is continuing the trend of Magic designers can't seem to go 2 or more sets without introducing a new artifact token type. We have Vibranium tokens joining Treasure, Food, Gold, Clue, Blood, Power Stone, Maps, Junk, Lander, and Mutagen as predefined artifact tokens. Vibranium tokens are indestructible and have tap, add colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. So this phrasing has proven, has been on some other cards, and it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, because what you need to realize is that mana can be spent on anything that isn't a non-artifact spell. So you can use it for any and all activated abilities. You can use it to pay for triggers that require a mana cost, ward costs. You can just use it to cast cancel, right? Actually, that's wrong, because this mana can't be spent to cast. See, I even messed that up.
The double negative gets people real bad. You can't non-artifact. Like, what can I do? Like, it's...
Right. So if you are casting a spell, it has to be an artifact spell to use this mana. Everything else you can use it for.
Yes. It is just mana that you can use anywhere unless you're casting a spell, in which case has to be artifact. 17 words as opposed to 7.
You got a note here that says, isn't Vibranium Power Stone with extra steps?
It is literally the exact same rules text as Power Stone. The only difference is the word indestructible is on the token. That's it.
Well, okay, so obviously you're paying a premium price for your booster packs, so your predefined artifact tokens have to be a little more powerful.
Sure.
Right? It's all the extra price of the booster packs. That's what you're paying for, is your indestructible Power Stones.
Yep. Collect them while you can.
Collect them while you can. Okay, what's next? Double face cards are back, baby.
Yes. Double face cards are you back. Want me to take this one since you just did the last one? The
yeah, go for it.
The Vibranium
double face cards.
Yeah.
However, does the phrase looks like double face cards are back on the menu, boys? Does that imply that Middle Earth had restaurants?
I mean, like, where else are you gonna get second breakfast?
Kiki's Breakfast Cafe. It's called
I'm gonna
brunch.
say they have to have restaurants. No, it's second breakfast. Brunch is a distinctly different meal.
Brunch is separate from second breakfast.
Don't start with me on breakfast. This is my favorite meal. Let's go.
Okay.
Anyways,
speaking of favorite meals, double face transforming cards. Go.
All right, so they're back, and now we have modal double face cards that can transform. These were introduced all the way back in that faraway set, Spider-Man.
The last time we visited the plane of New York. No, wait, that was Turtles.
That was Ninja Turtles. That's right.
That was Ninja Turtles.
We've had a whole other set in this plane. But yeah, introduced in Spider-Man, they're back, and it works in the same way. Before Spider-Man, you had your transforming double-faced cards and your modal double-faced cards, and they were just 2 separate things. One let you choose which side to play. The other said always play with the front face up, and then you can transform it if you meet a certain condition. What is this Firestorm reference? I don't get that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it said before Spider-Man, transforming double-face cards and modal double-face cards were separate things. Now, like Ronnie Raymond and Martin Stein combining into Firestorm, transforming double-face cards and modal double-face cards have combined into transforming modal double-face cards. Although that example is more like meld, and that's a DC reference, so I just wasted a whole bunch of time for an irrelevant bit.
Wait, isn't that more like Wonder Twins?
No. Okay, do you want me to go on about Jan and Jace?
That will be on JudgeCast After Dark. Move on, we got a lot of cards to cover.
Form of the next segment.
Yes. So, double-faced cards. When you determine if it's legal to play a modal double-faced card, only consider the face you are playing and ignore everything else. If an effect allows you to play a land or cast a spell from a group of cards, you can play or cast a modal double-faced card with any face that meets the criteria. This is something that trips up people a lot. All 4 of the faces.
Yep. They're taking that lenticular design. They're doing like sport flicks.
Yes. Just wait till we get the Boba Universes Beyond, Bo Jackson's Battle Arena. Let's go.
How thick a modal double face card that was also like a magic motion card would be. It's 4 cards in one, but it's really super anyway.
Oh my god. And somebody would make a commander deck out of it just to troll people. Yeah. So let's talk about this for real though, because like a lot of people, this is one of the questions I get a lot about double face cards in general. Mm-hmm. And it's, can I play or cast the back face of a card if I'm instructed to, for example, play a card from my graveyard, etc. So for our transforming modal double face cards, we have an example on screen. We have Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk. Bruce Banner is the front face of the card. For a blue mana, it is a 1/1 legendary creature human scientist hero with the activated ability of XX and tap to draw X cards, activate only as a sorcery. Pretty cool. And then it has the very costly 2 generic red, green to transform Bruce Banner. Activate this only as a sorcery. And on the back side, you have the Incredible Hulk. With a mana cost of 2 red, green. It is a legendary creature, Gamma Berserker hero. He is 8 power, 8 toughness, with reach, with trample, and the Enrage ability. Whenever the Incredible Hulk is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on him. If he's attacking, untap him, and there's an additional combat phase after this phase. Yeah, that shouts like the Hulk. So, like, let's say an effect lets you play Berserkers from your graveyard. Well, then, if you look on the screen, you'll see Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk. And the Incredible Hulk on the back side has the type of legendary creature, Gamma Berserker hero. So the back face of this card would be a Berserker. So you can cast the Incredible Hulk. You cannot cast the side of the card that is Bruce Banner, the legendary creature human scientist hero, though. Now, if an effect has you put a card onto the battlefield without casting or playing it, just putting the card from a zone onto the battlefield, then you can only look at the front face of that card, and that will enter with its front face up. So big difference. You can either play a land or cast a spell, and then you have the option to do front or back. Or if you're told to just put a card on the battlefield, has to be the front face of that card. The mana value of a modal double face card is based on the characteristics of the face that is being considered. So something is checking, let's say you have a Chalice of the Void on 1 on the battlefield and you're casting the Incredible Hulk. Well, you're casting the Incredible Hulk. That mana value is going to be a total of 6, not 1 like the Bruce Banner side would be. And we have I guess we'll call it recent change. It's not really recent, but probably 20 sets ago, which is maybe 6 months, something like that.
For folks our age that have been doing this for forever and a day, this is a recent change.
That is true, yes. So, a modal double face card can be transformed or put onto the battlefield transformed. If an effect tells you to transform a modal double face card on the battlefield, and the other side is not a permanent type, then it's just not going to transform. Because remember, you can't have instants or sorceries on the battlefield. Just not something you can do in the game. Now, if an effect has you choose a card name, either face of a transforming modal double face card can be chosen. And whatever effect uses that card name only looks for the side chosen, not the other side. So if I cast a Meddling Mage and then choose Bruce Banner, well, guess what? I'm going to cast the Incredible Hulk, no problem.
And also, if you cast Meddling Mage naming the Incredible Hulk, you could cast Bruce Banner and then still transform Bruce Banner into the Incredible Hulk.
Yep. Either way, you gonna get smashed. Out of context, that might be terrible. Anyways, and then modal transforming double face cards in Commander will use both sides to determine that card's color identity. So, for example, Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk has green and blue and red between the both sides, or even just on the front face, but you have all three of those colors front and back side. Therefore, it is a teamer card for in sake of color identity. Hooray!
Yeah. Now, we were kind of tongue-in-cheek going like, transforming modal double-face cards. There are transforming double-face cards. There are modal double-face cards. And what we've been calling transforming modal double-face cards is really just modal double-face cards that also have a mechanic on them that allow them to transform.
Yep.
Okay. That's just a little bit of like precision and stuff like that, so that someone doesn't be like, hey, you know that the thing that you were referencing doesn't actually exist. We know. We're just having fun with it.
Yeah, we have to have fun when we're going to be talking for this long about Magic cards.
All right. The Mind Stone, much like the Soul Stone, the Mind Stone has this new ability called harnessing, or the affinity symbol. Yes. All right. So the Mind Stone for 1 and a white is a legendary artifact, Infinity Stone. Not to be confused with Mind Stone.
Nope.
Okay.
Carries a lot of weight there.
Yeah, and this might... I don't know anybody that actually uses Mind Stone in decks that... I don't know, maybe CEDH.
Mana Rocks are Mana Rocks, yeah, maybe.
Mana Rocks are Mana Rocks, yeah. So just, if you're filling out deck lists, be especially if it's got white in it, be aware the difference between Mind Stone and the Mind Stone.
Yeah, this makes the you just writing Mind Stone on a deck list actually might not be very obvious of what your intent was. Just be aware.
I'd accept if you put Mind Stone and put the Infinity symbol. But anyway, it is for 1 and a white, legendary artifact, Infinity Stone, indestructible. Tap, add a white, and for 5 and 1 white, tap, harness the Mind Stone. And then once it's harnessed, its Infinity ability is active. And the Infinity ability is, at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target non-land permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. I love the fact that this is considered a returning keyword ability, and it's just 1 card in the set, and they've only done 1 other. Anyway.
They make such a big deal about it. They got Paul Bettany to come out on stage and announce the Mind Stone. Like... that's a big deal.
I mean, if that's a flex, but
it is a flex.
Okay. So harnessed is a designation that the permanent has once an ability that instructs you to harness it has resolved. This has no special meaning other than being a designation that the Infinity ability uses. And the release notes says, and theoretically other effects. So maybe they're trying to hint that other Infinity abilities, I don't know, man. But until it's harnessed,
we know they're coming.
Yep. Now here's what it says in the release notes. It says, until it's harnessed, the Mind Stone doesn't have the ability listed after the Infinity symbol. Okay, now this is in the release notes, not in the actual CR, but it says it also doesn't have that ability in zones other than the battlefield. Okay. Being harnessed isn't copyable. If something else becomes a copy of the Mind Stone, it must be harnessed separately. Okay. Similarly, if the Mind Stone is already harnessed and it becomes a copy of something else, *, it stays harnessed even though it's very likely that it won't be relevant. Really, the only thing you could turn it into is the Soul Stone and have that ability be relevant.
Yeah. Or
Yep.
for now,
Dun
because
dun
we
dun.
like
All right, what
I
have you
have to
got here?
ask over under on how many sets, because people have been talking about this a little bit lately. So we had the Soul Stone show up in the Spider-Man set.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, okay, Marvel superheroes. I wonder how many more Infinity Stones are going to show up in this set. The answer was 1. So does that mean that we're now going to have at least 4 more Marvel sets so that we can round out our Infinity Stone and an Infinity Gauntlet eventually?
I think I've heard that they have like a multi-set contract.
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
heard they're
know.
doing a few sets, but nobody really knew what that meant. Like nobody really knew what that meant or how many sets that'll be. So like I'm trying to figure out how many sets that'll actually be. I'm going to guess it's going to be 4 Marvel sets total. Or maybe they're going to go full ham and like half of Magic in the next 3 years is going to be Marvel.
Okay,
Who knows?
I don't think, and I'm gonna say I don't think there's enough for 4 large sets. 4 more large sets. They'd have to
I
do
don't
like some
know.
smaller. They'd have to do some smaller ones. Did you see there was a thing on Twitter where someone had counted up the instances of the named characters in the set, and it was like
Yep.
Chandra was number 1, Jace was number 2, Liliana was Johnny was number 3, and then Peter Parker was number 4.
Yep. There's technically more of each of the 4 Ninja Turtles than there are to fairies in the game. And that feels wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like
That's
it.
fun.
But like there's a lot of Tony Starks now. Like
There's a lot of Iron Man cards and a lot of heroes. They've gotten a couple of variants of them. I've noticed that like you see Captain America and then you see another, I'm presuming Steve Rogers Captain America, and then you see a Sam Wilson Captain America, and it's like, oh, okay. We get it. There's a lot of versions of these folks. So like realistically, you say there might not be, but heck, you might just have like a full Civil War set that's just talking the Civil War storyline. You could have an MCU Marvel set that is pulling straight from the movies. Like if they want to, they got a lot of source material that they can pull from. It's Marvel.
I know, but like
It's like how many times can you do a Spider-Man origin story or a Spider-Man TV show or animated series? Like, well, at least a dozen.
okay, not counting kids cartoons, man.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Okay. But here we go. We're going to move on to individual cards now in a long-standing JudgeCast tradition, we're going to start heavily doing letters beginning at the beginning of the alphabet and increasingly get the letters are going to get further and further apart as we go along the episode, because realistically like we'll just pick like the first card that has an intervening if clause and talk about it, and then you know if you have another intervening if clause that starts with an H, we're not going to talk about that card. You just know intervening if clause, go. But Marcos, you want to kick us off?
Let's do it with Absorbing Man. For 1, a green and a blue, he is a 4/4 legendary creature human villain with vigilance, and at the beginning of your first main phase until your next turn, Absorbing Man becomes a copy of up to 1 target artifact, non-aura enchantment, or land. Except his name is Absorbing Man. He's a legendary 4/4 human villain creature, in addition to his other types, and he has vigilance. So basically, replace that ability text with whatever the text box of the other card is, and I guess the mana cost, and that's it. Otherwise, everything else just stays the same on this card. It's kind of cool. So let's talk about copy effects. We're diving right in. When you copy a card with Absorbing Man, you're going to copy exactly what was printed on that target permanent card and nothing else. You're not going to copy things like whether that card was tapped or untapped. That's not a copyable characteristic. Neither is if it had counters on it, or if it had something attached to it, like an aura or an equipment, or if there were any continuous effects that were applying to it, like a giant growth or a bile blight. You're just copying, like pick up the physical card. That is what you now have. Exactly that card onto Absorbing Man with the exceptions that are listed. So the name is going to stay Absorbing Man. The type will be legendary creature, human villain, plus whatever that card's types are. Abilities will be the same as on the copied card, but you're adding vigilance. And whatever the power and toughness on that other card is, it's going to be a 4/4. Now, if you copy a token, since that's not actually a card, you're just going to copy whatever the original characteristics of the token were based off of the effect that told you to create it. So if the effect said create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, it'll be a token named human soldier with the type creature human soldier. It'll be white and its power and toughness will be 1/1. That's what you're copying, and then slap the absorbing man on top of it. If you copy a clone that is currently copying something else, you'll end up copying what the clone was copying. So let's say if Charles is controlling a clone that is copying a bear cub, your absorbing man will copy the information of the bear cub, not the clone underneath. And unlike some other cards that copy, this effect is actually a triggered ability that happens each turn and has a duration. So since the copy applies at the beginning of your first main phase, you won't get any enters triggers or any replacement effects that apply when a creature enters, like this enters with a +1/+1 counter or anything like that, because your absorbing man is not entering at this point. He's just hanging out and doing his shapeshifty thing.
Just doing his thing?
Doing his thing. And then finally, if the target is illegal when the ability goes to resolve, it'll do nothing. And you'll just have an absorbing man who looks really confused, but he's still a 4/4 with vigilance and he's a human villain and he's doing his thing.
Nobody wants a confused absorbing man.
No, you want them to be focused.
Okay, was that the...
That's it. That's all I got on that. Was that not enough for you? Are you not entertained?
No, it's fine. Next up is Ant-Man Colony Commander. For 1 green and a blue, we've got a legendary creature human rogue hero that's a 2/2. Remember what I said just a few moments ago about dealing with a card ability that we cover like once every episode? Well, this is the one. Okay, Ant-Man, let's see if you can guess what it is before I start reading the card. Okay, go ahead and lock in. All right, whenever Ant-Man attacks, you may pay 1. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And then whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. This ability triggers only once a turn. We have a reflexive trigger. So whenever Ant-Man attacks, you may pay 1, period. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, on target creature. So what that means is, whenever Ant-Man attacks, trigger goes on the stack. When that trigger resolves, you may pay 1. Okay, if you don't pay 1, that's the end of it. If you do pay 1, immediately another trigger goes on the stack that you have to declare a target creature for at that point. So you do not declare a target for this creature for the ability when it attacks. But that is a trigger that goes on the stack. It can be stifled or whatever. Okay? All right. So now the second ability triggers whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature for any reason, not just if a counter goes on for this ability. Now, if this is the only creature that you have, you do kind of form a chain of like Ant-Man attacks, trigger goes on the stack, you pay 1, okay? Then you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and then when you put that +1/+1 counter on target creature, then you get you create a 1/1 green insect creature token. This ability triggers only once a turn. So if your Ant-Man somehow decides to, or somehow gains the ability to attack multiple combats, you can't get more than the 1 insect token. If you put +1/+1 counters on random creatures, you're still only going to get a single 1/1 green insect creature token, because that last ability is not actually tied to the first one. Okay, cool.
All right, time to talk about yet another recycled mechanic, because we love bringing back mechanics from the past, especially when they can flavor up our new Marvel set. Let's look at Baron Helmet Zemo. For black, he is a 3/3 legendary creature, human noble villain. Whenever you cast a black spell from your hand, Baron Helmet Zemo connives, and he has Boast. Exile any number of black cards from your graveyard with 15 or more black mana symbols among their mana costs, copy those exiled cards. You may cast up to 3 of the copies without paying their mana costs. Woof. Let's talk about Boast. Boast is an ability that can be activated at any point after the creature with that Boast ability has been declared as an attacker. And the key part of that is declared as an attacker. Not whether it attacked, but whether you declared it as an attacker. Now, if I were to gain control of Beepril's Baron Helmet after he declared it as an attacker, and then in his second main phase, I gained control of it for some reason, I could actually activate his Boast ability because it was still declared as an attacker this turn. Doesn't have to be declared by you, it's just whether it was declared as an attacker this turn. But if you were to put Baron Helmet Zemo onto the battlefield already attacking, you can't boast about it because, well, you didn't declare him as an attacker. So, doesn't meet the requirements for boast. And once you've declared Baron as an attacker once, any further attacks with that creature don't give you the ability to activate your boast abilities again. You can do a boast ability only once each turn, no matter how many times you declare him as an attacker. And then for its boast ability, talking with the whole 15 or more black mana symbols among their mana costs, hybrid mana counts as a black mana cost if it includes black as part of the hybrid cost. So a hybrid Dimir of blue/black will count as a black mana symbol. If one of the cards that you've exiled with this boast ability has an X in its cost, you must end up choosing 0 for X, because when you're casting a spell without paying its mana cost, you're actually using an alternate casting cost, and therefore you can't choose anything other than X to be 0. You can, however, pay additional costs on top of that free alternate cost, like, for example, teamwork, or any additional costs like, as an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card. You will have to do all of that, or can do all of that. Any copies you don't cast will end up going poof next time state-based actions are checked because, well, those cards are copied in exile, and therefore you may cast up to 3 of them, but then once you're done with the rest of them, okay, well, now they've all disappeared and just the originals are left in exile. And if you activate the boast ability multiple times in a game, it's only going to reference the cards that you exiled to activate the ability in that particular instance. Any previous cards that you exiled to this ability, like last turn or 3 turns ago, they're not part of the equation anymore. They're just done and in exile. It's only from the cards that you used to activate the ability.
Oh my goodness. So much boasting. All right. Baxter building. Isn't Baxter a character from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2? Like the Fly Guy?
Also, yes. Yes, he is.
Yeah, okay. So the Fly Guy's building, Baxter building, is a land. Tap to add a colorless. 4 and tap, add 4 mana in any combination of colors. And then 4 and tap, draw a card. Activate only if you control a creature with toughness 4 or greater. Okay. The last activated ability here checks to see if something is true in order to activate the ability. So if you control a creature with toughness 4 or greater, you can activate the ability. If you don't have one, you can't. Once the ability has been activated, it doesn't matter if you control a creature with toughness 4 or greater when the ability goes to resolve, okay? This is a restriction on activation, not a restriction on resolution.
Yep.
That's all I gotta say about that.
Indeed. Now we're going to rewind a little bit back because we've already talked about Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk quite a bit earlier on when we were talking about transforming double-face cards. However, I do want to point out an ability that was on the Incredible Hulk that we didn't really dive into because we were so focused on that whole transforming bit. And that's the fact that the Incredible Hulk has Enrage. Now, Enrage is an ability word that means when a creature is dealt damage, something happens. So as a reminder, for the Incredible Hulk, he has Reach, he has Trample, and he has Enrage. Whenever the Incredible Hulk is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on him. If he's attacking, untap him, and there's an additional combat phase after this phase. So in this instance, if you have multiple sources all dealing damage to the Hulk at the same time, because let's face it, you kind of have to gang up if you want to take out the Hulk. So if you end up getting blocked by an army of Hydra goons, the Enrage will only trigger once because it's whenever it's dealt damage, and it all happens as one event. Now, if the result of that damage is lethal damage that is being dealt to the Incredible Hulk, he will be removed from the battlefield due to state-based actions while his Enrage triggers on the stack. So he's not going to be there to get any of those +1/+1 counters on him. So sad if that would have saved him. However, the ability is still going to resolve and do as much as it can, which means you will still get an extra combat phase after this phase. Pretty cool.
All right. Next up is Captain America Super Soldier. For 1 white, we've got a 3/2 legendary creature human soldier hero with first strike. It says Captain America enters with a shield counter on him. And as long as Captain America has a shield counter on him, you and other heroes you control have hexproof. Is it any surprise that Captain America has shield counters?
Oh, it's so good.
It is not a surprise.
We did it.
Yep. Shocker. All right. So when you remove
No, he was in Spider-Man. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. Shocker was in Spider-Man.
Oh, Shocker. Yep. All right.
Got him.
So, shield counters, okay, so the reminder text for shield counter is if he would be dealt damage or destroyed, remove a shield counter from him instead. Okay, so just a quick reminder of that. Shield counters, they don't prevent players from sacrificing the creatures. Okay, this is just preventing damage or stopping a destroy effect from doing their thing on the creature. When you remove a shield counter as part of the replacement, that is not considered regenerating the permanent. Okay, so it's not going to be removed from combat. It's not going to be tapped. You just, instead of taking the damage or instead of being destroyed, you just pull the shield counter off. So if you do damage to Captain America that is unpreventable, like with Impractical Joke, the damage will not be prevented. However, a shield counter is still going to come off. Okay? And even if the creature still has a shield counter on it, it can still be destroyed by state-based actions if it has lethal damage marked on it from an unpreventable source, with, say, like, any amount, or with Death Touch or something, right? If it was unpreventable Death Touch damage, it's gone. If it somehow has negative toughness, okay, state-based actions are still going to get rid of it. And then a shield counter. Shield isn't a keyword ability. Okay, or rather, it's not a keyword counter. Okay, it doesn't grant the creature abilities like flying counters. Okay, like finality counters, it's just rule specific to that particular counter. And that's all I got to say about that.
Moving right along, as Bryan and I are two together here, we are similar to Cloak and Dagger entwined in that there's two of them on this card. Man, that was a stretch for a segue. We're trying, folks. Yeah. We're really trying here. When all of the names of these cards are just the name of the superhero, it's hard to find a transition point. Anyways,
but it's the comma part, because you got to have Cloak and Dagger entwined, Cloak and Dagger. What's another seldom used mechanic from Mirrodin Block? Cloak and Dagger imprint, Cloak and Dagger sweep from Betrayers of Kamigawa.
Oh yeah, it's Cloak and Dagger forecast.
Cloak and Dagger persist. That was a thing, right?
Yeah, that's been used a lot.
What was that one thing that that keyword that wasn't really a keyword?
Ooh.
Never mind.
Oh, I kind of remember what you're talking about, but I'm not diving that deep into my brain. There you go. So, Cloak and Dagger entwined. We have, for 1 a white and a black, a 2/2 legendary creature human hero, Death Touch and Lifelink. Nice little mirror there. When Cloak and Dagger enter, choose target opponent and up to 1 target creature they control. They reveal their hand. You may exile a non-land card from their hand, or the chosen creature, until Cloak and Dagger leave the battlefield. So, This is an exile effect with a duration. And interestingly, this gives it a bit of a twist. You can choose to exile a creature from the battlefield, like most of these will often do in most sets. However, you also get the choice of possibly exiling a card from your opponent's hand. And something that might not be as intuitive is, well, what happens when Cloak and Dagger goes away and that duration ends? Well, if you exile a card from your opponent's hand, it will go back to their hand when that duration ends. Just like if you exile a creature, it returns to the battlefield from whence it came. Man, how often do I get to use from whence it came on JudgeCast? That's awesome. Anyways, if the duration never begins, like let's say Cloak and Dagger is removed from the battlefield before the trigger resolves, then you won't actually exile anything. The duration never began, therefore nothing moves. You will, in this instance, still be able to see the player's hand. You're just not going to exile anything. If a creature is exiled with this ability, any auras and equipment that were attached to it will fall off. Any auras that are not attached to any permanents will end up going to the graveyard, or permanents or players. But if an aura is not attached to anything and it's on the battlefield, it's going to go to the graveyard. Counters that were on that creature will poof out of existence. And if you choose to exile a creature token, it will also go poof when it's in exile. If the creature you target is under the control of another player, when the trigger goes to resolve, then the creature will end up being an illegal target. Because note, what is the targeting restriction on this? Choose target opponent and up to one target creature they control. So if a creature that they control, so let's say I'm targeting Charles with this. Charles has a bear cub, and I choose Charles and target his bear cub. And then Prerelease takes Charles's bear cub. The bear cub is no longer a legal target for me for this ability. However, as long as I still have a single legal target, like Charles in this instance, then the trigger will still try and resolve and do as much as it can. So, in this instance, if Prerelease takes the bear cub, then Charles is still a legal target, and then I will look at Charles's hand and exile a card from his hand. But if the opponent is a legal target for some reason, then you can choose to exile the target creature as long as it is still a legal target. But if both end up being illegal targets, then the entire ability would be countered. A lot of depth to that one little twist they put on that trigger, but kind of cool.
It's a lot. All right. So the next card, Construct a Cosmic Cube. We talked about this when we talked about Plan, but we're going to talk about it now with respect to rule stuff. So for 2 and a black, Construct a Cosmic Cube, enchantment plan. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/1 black villain creature token with menace and put a plan counter on this enchantment. When the 7th plan counter is put on this enchantment, sacrifice it. When you do, you control target opponent during their next turn. All right. So first off, the cube doesn't have to be on the field to see your first draw. It just has to be there for the second. So you draw for turn, play Cosmic Cube. Your opponent does something. You ask them if they pay the 1. They don't. You draw a card. There's your second card. Ta-da! You get your dude and your plan counter. All right. So the next ability, when the 7th plan counter is put onto the enchantment, sacrifice it. When you do, okay, that is a reflexive trigger. So the trigger is going to go on the stack. If someone destroys or naturalizes your cosmic cube with that trigger on the stack, you're not going to be able to sacrifice it, and so you're not going to be able to control target opponent during their next turn. But if you do, you get to. All right, so let's talk about controlling another player. There's actually a lot of rules for this. I'm just going to touch on a few of the biggies. So when you control another player, they are still the active player. Okay, you control. This is kind of weird. You control the player. You don't control their permanents, their spells, or abilities. Okay, if you want to think of yourself as like a puppet master dancing above, you can. Okay, they're still they're still the controller of their stuff. You just climb on top of their head and ratatouille them for a turn. Okay. Let's talk about what you can see from an information standpoint. When you control another player, you can see everything that they're legally entitled to see, asterisk. Their hand, face down permanents they control, face down cards in exile that they were allowed to look at, and if they have to search their library, you can ratatouille them while they search their library. However, and this is important for tournaments, is you're not allowed to look at that player's sideboard. If an effect instructs you to look at cards outside the game, you can't have that player choose any cards at all, as you don't have access to that information. But you get to make all their choices. Again, you're ratatouilleing them. Okay? You can only use that player's resource to do things that they could do. You don't get to, like, combine mana. It's not, it's our mana. It kind of is, but you don't get to, like, use your stuff to help them cast spells or have them give you mana to do stuff on your turn or anything like that. You can't make them concede. Okay? You can't have them make illegal choices. Any of that stuff. All right? Now here's the thing. In Two-Headed Giant, this is insane. Controlling a player means you control the team.
Got him.
Woof. Okay? Secret Two-Headed Giant tech. You want to create as many little 2/1 villains. You want to get all them plan counters. Yeah. All right.
Amazing.
Yep.
Next up, we have Doc Samson, Super Psychiatrist for 4 and a green. He's a 3/6 legendary creature, Gamma Doctor Hero. If you would put one or more counters on a permanent you control, put that many +1. Sorry. See, this is even confusing just to say.
Yeah.
Put that
and
many
how does that make you feel?
+1. All right, Doc. I am not on your couch right now. This is not the time for a therapy session, Brian. We got release notes to get through.
No, you seem agitated.
Don't get me started. Anyways. All right, let's try that one again. If you would put one or more counters on a permanent you control,
I find your obsession with perfection. Where does that stem from?
Oh, I don't know. Probably my mother. Always goes back to mother, right?
Okay. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely not. Moving on. If you would put one or more counters on a permanent you control, put that many +1 of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent instead. Got there. All right. And then it also has another ability, tap, add X mana of any one color, where X is Doc Samson's power. You get that one. This just adds a single additional counter to anything that would put counters on a permanent. So this means if a thing enters with X +1/+1 counters, it gets X +1 of them. So let's say 3 +1/+1 counters enters, then it will enter with 4 X +1. If you control multiple of Doc Samson, you would add X additional +1/+1 counters, where X is equal to the number of Doc Samsons you control. So if you have 2 doctors and a creature enters with a single +1/+1 counter, it'll actually enter with 3 +1/+1 counters in total.
Doctor. All right.
Was that an echo I heard?
I mean, it wasn't intended, but yes. Echo,
Hey.
the Perceptive Prodigy for 2 and a blue is a 1/4 legendary creature human hero with vigilance. 1, tap, copy, target activated or triggered ability you control from a creature source. You may choose new targets for the copy. All right. Now, copying spells and copying triggered activated abilities work very, very similar. Now, this card isn't copying spells, it's just copying activated triggered abilities, but it kind of works the same. You put a copy on the stack, it's got the same modes. If it was a triggered ability with modes, it's got the same number of targets, same choices are made for it. This ability, though, lets you choose new targets. You can't change the number of targets. That's locked in, but you can change what's being targeted. Now, have a little clarification, like how do you recognize a activated or triggered ability? Triggered abilities use the words when, whenever, and at. Not if, okay? Or not as. It's when, whenever, at. Those are triggered abilities, okay? Activated abilities have a colon, okay? It's just like doctor visits when you're over 50. It's all about the colon,
Oh my God.
If it helps people remember, and sometimes that colon is in the buried in the keyword ability rules text. Anyway, okay. Now here's another thing. This talks about the activated or triggered ability you control from a creature source. Okay, that's a little weird, a little different than what we're used to. But here, a creature source is a permanent spell or card. A creature source is a permanent a creature spell that happens to be on the stack, or a creature card that is in any zone if it has the card type creature. This lets you target a cycling ability. That is an activated ability from a creature source. Okay. Um, Normally, when we say if you left off the word source, it would only apply to creatures on the battlefield. But this lets and this is actually going to be a refrain on multiple cards. Uh, uh, in this,
Spoilers.
yes. All right. If the ability being copied is linked to a second ability, okay, copies of that first ability are also linked to the second ability. If any of these linked abilities refer to the exiled cards, it refers to all cards exiled by the first ability and the copy. Okay, so like for example, Hoarding Dragon from Foundation says, when this creature enters, you may search your library for an artifact card, exile it, then shuffle. Okay, if you were to copy that, you would search your library for a second artifact card, exile it, and shuffle. Then Hoarding Dragon's third ability says, when this creature dies, you may put the exiled card into its owner's hand. Okay, in that particular case, both the exiled cards would be put into the owner's hand. All right. Um, Now, the way this is phrased, you can target any activated or triggered ability you control from a creature source that is on the stack. It does not have to have targets, okay, but it does have to be the 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 target clause is activated or triggered ability you control from a creature source. All those things have to be true. If there's X in the ability that you're copying, the copy is going to have the same value. And I have said copy so many times that the word has stopped losing all meaning. Yep. You can't choose to pay the activation cost for the ability if you're copying an activated ability, but any costs that were already paid for the original, like sacrificing a card or discarding a card, will be copied as though those costs were paid for the copy. Copy.
Same
Copy.
for buddy.
Yep.
Jeez. All right. Well, that was masterful. You did a great job there.
Yep,
that was a lot to get through.
Copy.
Just like Hawkeye, Master Marksman, for 1 and a red, he's a 2/2 legendary creature, human archer hero. Archer? Different archer. First strike, reach, and he has the ability Trick Arrows. Whenever Hawkeye becomes tapped, you may pay 1 generic up to 3 times. When you
do you
do...
want Ant-Mans? This is how you get Ant-Mans.
This is how you get Hawks. When you do, choose up to that many. Net, target creature can't block this turn. Explosive, Hawkeye deals 2 damage to target player. And Boomerang, discard a card, then draw a card. So this is another reflexive trigger, and I know we already covered one, but here it's interesting because you may pay 1 up to 3 times. So you can choose to pay 1, 2, 3, or nothing, because may pay up to 1 up to 3 times. And then that will cause a reflexive trigger to allow you to choose modes based on that number when you do choose to pay something. So if you decide not to pay anything, no reflexive trigger because you didn't do the do. But if you choose 1, 2, or 3, then you choose up to that many of these trick arrows that Hawkeye has. Cool flavor, but I don't think I've ever seen that specific type of verbiage on choosing modes on a reflexive trigger. But I kind of like it.
Yeah. Next up, we have Hulk Gamma Goliath for 3 red and a green. We have a 6/5 with reach and trample. Power up abilities of other creatures you control cost 3 less to activate. And then his power up for 6 green and a red and green. Put 5 +1/+1 counters on Hulk. All right. So first off, when it says put 5 +1/+1 counters on Hulk, it's talking about this Hulk, not any other Hulk. Um, it
That
also
matters.
the ability also says power up abilities of other creatures you control cost 3 less to activate. That does not mean, or that means that Hulk Gamma Goliath does not get the cost reduction of its own ability. Because if it did, that would just be its mana cost, which would be you paying 0. So they probably already baked that. They already considered that. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is another thing. This cost reduction reduces the generic mana cost, not any specific costs. Okay, so yeah, it only reduces the generic stuff. You can't pay for Wooburg with black and a green because the ability costs 3 less to activate. It's generic mana is generic mana.
Yep. You have the Hulk. I have the Hulkling. Yeah, all right. Hulkling, Burgeoning Bruiser. For 2 and a green, he is a 2/3 legendary creature, Kree Skrull hero with vigilance, and whenever another creature you control enters, if it has greater power or toughness than Hulkling, put a +1/+1 counter on Hulkling. Okay, so looking at the release notes, there's a lot of rules info here, but I'm going to try and sum it up. Long and short of it, no, there's too much. Let me sum up.
Let me sum up. Yeah, okay.
The long and short of this is, for every time this triggered ability triggers, you check whether the power or toughness of that other creature is greater than what Hulkling currently has when that triggered ability is resolving. And if so, if that is true on either power or toughness, you put a counter on Hulkling. It will trigger for each creature that enters individually, and it will only check comparatively when that trigger goes to resolve. So that means you have your 2/3 Hulkling out, you put, let's say, 2 5/5s onto the battlefield at the same time. First of all, good on you for being able to do that. Secondly, that will trigger this ability twice. Each time, it will add a +1/+1 counter, because the first one sees a 5/5 that's more than 2 or 3. So yes, it gets a +1/+1 counter. Now it's a 3/4. Then, second creature, also a 5/5, that's bigger than 3 or 4. So great, gets another +1/+1 counter on Hulkling. Always checks each individual time that it goes to resolve. But then, let's say you put another 5/5 out onto the battlefield. Well, the trigger condition is another creature you control enters. So trigger will go onto the stack. But it's a 5/5, and let's say the Hulkling was just a 5/5 at the time, or a 4/5, like we had just said. But then I decide to cast a Giant Growth on my other 5/5. Well,
So
Giant Growth resolves.
Clearly not choose the 5/5 in front of you.
Exactly. Giant Growth goes to resolve. The 5/5 is now an 8/8. And then when Hulkling's ability goes to resolve, it sees it's a 4/5, and that is an 8/8. Clearly, that is larger than the Hulkling in front of me. Therefore, it will get a counter. Man, I wish we could just do a full Princess Bride set so we can just have every single segue just laid out for us.
Yes. All right. Hydra Infiltration. For 3 and a black is an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, target opponent discards 2 cards. When a creature whenever a creature you control attacks alone, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. All right. So, for attacking, a creature attacks alone if it's the only creature that you declare as an attacker during the declare attacker step of combat. If you have other creatures that enter attacking, like through sneak or ninjutsu, or one of those creatures that just whenever it attacks, it puts creatures on the battlefield, doesn't matter since they were not declared as attackers. Okay. Question comes up, this won't count as attacking alone if you declare 2 attackers and your opponent removes one of those attackers. You still declared 2 creatures as attacking. Okay. This also applies to 2-headed giant. When I attack alone, or when this creature attacks alone, it is the only creature that was declared as an attacker. So if me and my buddy each attack with a creature, my creature is not attacking alone. Okay?
I am Iron Man.
Are you?
I have always wanted to say that unironically. I mean, I could be. You don't know. Maybe that's why I'm always so busy. I am Iron Man. For 2 and a blue, it's an instant that says, until end of turn, target artifact or creature becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 4/4 and gains flying. Draw a card. So this will overwrite anything that previously set the power and toughness of a creature. So let's say I'd cast a scale up on my Ornithopter. Well, or a Turned-to-Frog. Doesn't matter. Now that I've resolved I am Iron Man, it now will have the base power and toughness 4/4. For our layers episode, check out layer 7B. If you were to turn a vehicle card into a creature with I am Iron Man, it's not going to count as having been crewed. Yes, it's a vehicle that now is animated. It just turned on, and ran off, just like your refrigerator used to do in the 90s. But that doesn't mean that it was actually crewed because now it's a creature. No, that is specifically activating the crew ability and paying the crew cost. And an effect that states a permanent becomes an artifact creature allows it to retain all of its prior card types and subtypes, because that's the rules with turning things into artifact creatures. It's there for a reason. We don't write the rules, we just report on them. It's been that way forever, likely will be forever.
All right. So, while you are Iron Man, we also have Iron Lad, Diverging Destiny. Oh, that's a name. All right. Iron Lad, Diverging Destiny. Jeez. For 2 and a blue, it is a legendary artifact creature human hero that's a 2/2 flying vigilant. It says you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and then tap, reveal the top card of your library. If it's an artifact card, draw a card. All right. Looking at the top card of the library, because of this, is just a thing you can do. It's like looking at your hand. You have information. You do not have to say, in response, I look at the top card of my library. Don't do it. Friends don't let friends say, in response, look at the top card of my library. All right. There is an exception, though, to that. If the top card of your library changes while you were in the middle of casting a spell or activating an ability or taking a special action, you do not get to look at the next top card until you finish that casting of the spell or activating that ability or the taking of the special action. Okay, Iron Lad.
All right, I see your Iron Lad, and I raise you an Iron Heart, Clever Champion.
Or an Iron Colon.
For 4 and... Oh, boy. By the way, everybody, I had my 40th birthday between our last episode and this one, so now we are definitely old man JudgeCast now, but we're getting there. Everybody, go get your colonoscopies. It's important.
Yeah, well, I think combined we're like 140. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we're up there. We're all up there. It's okay. Just take care of yourselves. Health is important. Don't put off going to the doctor. Just go. Anyways, Ironheart, Clever Champion, is a legendary artifact creature, human hero. It is a 3/4 and has the ability Improvise. Your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1 generic mana. Also has flying, and non-creature spells you cast have Improvise. Neat. In the same Iron family, we also have a card from earlier in the alphabet that I'm going to lump in here as well, Arc Reactor. For 5 generic mana, it is an artifact with Improvise. This artifact enters tapped, and you can tap it to add 3 colorless mana. So, Improvise doesn't stack. So let's say I have Ironheart out on the battlefield, and I go to cast Arc Reactor, which naturally has Improvise. That doesn't mean that each artifact I tap will now pay for 2 generic mana. It's still just 1, no matter how many instances of Improvise you have on any given spell you're casting. Nice try. Improvise doesn't change the mana value or even the cost of a spell that needs to be paid. It's not a discount, it's just a way to pay for that cost that has already been determined. Now, when you're going to determine costs and calculate costs, remember you apply all of your cost increases and then apply any cost decreases and then check for Trinisphere because that is a singular card that makes the rules silly. Improvise can't pay for any specific mana costs, by the way, only generic. So you cannot pay for white, blue, black, red, green, or colorless by improvising for that particular mana pip. You also can't double tap to pay for improvise and for mana. So as this said, after you're done activating mana abilities, you can tap an artifact to pay for one. It says that in the reminder text. And that's because somebody's going to get clever and say, oh, well, I'm going to tap my arc reactor for 3 colorless and tap it for improvise. So now I get 4 of my total generic cost paid. Does not work that way. You can either tap it for improvise or tap it to activate a mana ability. But once you've activated the mana ability, then you can't tap it again for improvise. Likewise, if you tap it for improvise for some reason, then that means you can't also then tap it again to activate its mana ability. However, you can pay costs in any order. So if a spell requires you to sacrifice a permanent as an additional cost, for example, you can choose to tap your arc reactor as to pay for improvise before sacrificing it to pay the sacrifice cost. And for those of us who've been getting constant solicitations from AARP, remember that tapping an artifact doesn't cause it to stop applying or just turn it off, unless the card says so. That's not a rule like it was in the old days. I understand that with Marvel coming around, some folks who played 30 years ago now might come back to the game and go, oh, well, I tapped the artifact, therefore it turns off its ability, right? Not the case anymore.
Yes. Oh, that's old. That's old school.
Yeah, that's real old school. But I've had people ask me about it at my LGS who've come back to the game after taking an extended break. So something to be aware of. If anything, it's just a fun trivia fact. Also remember that equipment are separate from the creature that it's attached to, so you can tap an equipment without it having any effect on the abilities of the equipment or whether you can equip it later on in the turn. It doesn't tap the creature it's attached to. The equipment is just its own artifact and can be tapped for improvise. And when you cast a spell with X in the cost, you're first going to choose the value of X, and then you can use improvise to pay for some of the overall generic cost of that spell that you have cast. I like improvise. It's a fun mechanic.
All right. Next, we're going to talk about a card that has one of my favorite mechanics, Kingpin of Crime.
Yeah.
That's the Kingpin of Crime, not to be confused with Kingpin of Crime, a card from the dark. That is for one white and a black. Is a 1/5 legendary creature human villain with extort. And then whenever you attack, you may pay 2 life. If you do, until end of turn, creatures you control with toughness greater than their power assign combat damage equal to their toughness rather than their power. They do butt damage. So that's a callback from a very old episode, but yes, they deal butt damage. So extort allows you to pay. So extort says whenever you cast a spell, you may pay either white or black. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. So with extort, for each spell you cast, you can only pay 1 time. It's not like I tap 5 mana and each opponent loses 5 life and I gain that much life. So I would gain, in a commander game, because of course we're talking about commander, I'd gain, 15 life. Nope, it's just you activate it, your 3 opponents lose 3 life, you gain. Now here's another thing, again, commander. The mana symbol for extort, that white-black hybrid, is actually in the rules text, the reminder text. It doesn't count. Okay.
So specifically not rules text, reminder text.
Yeah. Extort, the ability, does not have a mana symbol in its card text. Even if you wrote the ability out, it does. Okay, so just if you're... Now, I know it doesn't really matter in this card because Kingpin of Crime is also a white and black, but just calling that out for you commander folks. Extort doesn't target a player. It just causes loss of life, so it can't be prevented by things that would prevent damage. Finally, Kingpin's last ability doesn't... That's the butt damage one. It doesn't change the power of the creature. It just changes which number you use to calculate how much damage to be assigned when you are dealing combat damage. If something checks the creature's power, it's gonna use the power. Okay.
Yeah.
Now here's an interesting thing. Arena, if something takes damage, it shows you by reducing the toughness of the creature. This is not actually technically correct. So if you're used to playing Arena, you might see your toughness go down, but your toughness is actually still what it was originally, even though it took damage.
Yeah.
All right.
Or in this instance, it might even show that the power of your attacking creature would turn into the number that its toughness is, which is also not how this works. It is just assigning damage based off of that toughness number, not changing your power to be that toughness number while you're attacking or dealing damage or anything like that. Visually, it shows that way, and it's awful.
I'm just gonna say butt damage a few more times.
Butt damage.
Butt damage.
Super effective.
It is type, isn't it?
I can imagine it must be. I've never been hit with a butt, but I imagine it would be super effective.
Isn't there an anime that they just... Never mind. The answer is yes. Isn't there an anime that is? Yes, the answer is yes. Absolutely.
The answer is yes. Rule 34 is a thing. Let's talk about the butt of the hammer of Thor, which is named Mew Mew. No, Mjolnir. There you go. Mjolnir, Hammer of Thor, for 3 and a red, is a legendary artifact equipment. And it says when Mjolnir enters, it deals 4 damage to up to 1 target creature. Double all damage equipped creature would deal. And then it has equip worthy 1. And in parentheses, the reminder text, a creature is worthy if it's a legendary non-villain that's red and or white. And then it also has 2 and a red. Discard this card. It deals 2 damage to each creature. 'Cause damn. Sure, why not? So in the release notes, I particularly enjoy how the release notes starts off with the thought of, quote, in the rare case where a creature is equipped with 2 Mjolnirs. Oh boy, Commander players.
Mjolnir's akimbo.
If you have multiples of Mjolnir equipped, well then all damage will be multiplied. Let's say you had 2 Mjolnirs, all damage will be multiplied by 4. A third Mjolnir would multiply it by 8, and so on. 16, 32, just exponentially increasing.
They tell 2 friends
for every extra Mjolnir. Friends. Yes, they do. It's a triangle. It's a pyramid. There you go. The pyramid of screaming. If you have other effects that, for example, would modify how much damage a source you control would deal, either by preventing or increasing, the player that is being dealt damage, or the controller of the affected object, the object being dealt damage, would decide the order in which to apply the effects. So let's say I have a bear cub that is worthy, and it, because we turned it red or white and gave it legendary, and bear cub is equipped with Mjolnir. So we would double all damage he deals. But then your opponent has Heart-Shaped Herb, which is a 4-cost artifact that says if a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you, prevent 1 of that damage. Your opponent would be able to choose the order in which to apply those. So we have our 2/2 bear cub that will either have 1 of its damage prevented and then double it, or have its damage doubled and then prevent 1 of that. So in that instance, you're either going to take 1 or 3 damage, depending on how you choose to apply those effects. You decide what works best for you. But there's also a couple other ways this can interact. There are other doubling effects like Furnace of Wrath that would effectively work the same as if you had multiple Mjolnirs. That will just double and double and double, or even other effects that might triple or otherwise multiply out your damage. Those will all apply in whatever order you choose. And you can even have things that add additional. For example, Torbrin adds an additional 2 damage if it's from a red source, which it probably is because you have to be red or white to be worthy and wield Mjolnir. So All of these can affect how much damage you're actually dealing, but it's the owner of the affected object or the player being dealt the damage by these multiple replacement effects who chooses the order in which you apply all of them. Have fun building all sorts of Judge Towery style questions by adding 3 or 4 different layers of this and looking at all the different ways you can math.
Next up, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. 1 green and a blue for a 2/2 legendary creature human dinosaur hero that says whenever you draw your second card each turn until end of turn, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur's base power and toughness become 6/6 and they gain trample. And then whenever an artifact creature you control enters, draw a card. This ability triggers only once per turn. Now we've talked about some other aspects of this card that have, like whenever you draw your second card, doesn't have to be on the battlefield to see the first card. It just has to be on the battlefield to see the second. All right. Now
That comes
this
up
ability.
so much.
What's that?
That specific line of text in the release notes comes up so much in this release notes. Holy cow.
We've already talked about that. This ability also is going to overwrite any previous effects that set Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur's power and toughness to specific values. So if you have something that makes it a 4/4 and this ability resolves, it's going to become a 6/6. Now, if it became a 4/4 because it got +2/+2, that's different. Okay. It becomes a 4/4, is setting its power and toughness, gets +2/+2 until end of turn. That is modifying its power and toughness. So in that particular case, if it was a 4/4 because it got +2/+2 and you drew your second card, it would become an 8/8. 6/6 plus the 2/2. But the reason why I actually want to talk about this card was the second ability that says whenever an artifact you control enters, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Now, this ability triggers only once each turn has been mentioned previously in this episode. But what hasn't been mentioned is how this interacts with comp rel events. Okay? If there is a trigger and it triggers only once a turn and you missed it, okay, what happens? So I have an artifact, a treasure that enters. I do not draw a card. Go to combat, do stuff, then play, then have another treasure enter because something in combat happened. And I go, oh, I want to draw a card now. I missed it before, but now, since it didn't trigger before, I get my trigger now. Is that the way that works? The answer is no. This is the 4 triggers that trigger only once each turn. They did trigger when they were supposed to, using up the only once each turn. You just missed it. Okay?
Sorry about your luck.
Yeah, now if the opponent's like, yeah, put that on the stack, then they're giving you back that trigger. Okay? But yeah, you can't say, okay, I missed it the first time. I want to pick it up post combat and it only triggers once each turn and it didn't trigger before because I missed it. Nope. So if a trigger falls in the forest and no one's there to catch it, it still occurred only once per turn. Might have messed up some metaphors there. It had a multiversal incursion of some sort with my metaphors, but you get the point.
Nailed it. Multiversal Incursion for 5 blue is a sorcery. For each non-token creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it isn't legendary. Only one thing to say about this. Because of the rule around double-faced cards, this will create double-faced tokens of your double-faced cards.
Yep.
So you have those transforming modal double-faced cards. They will work exactly the same whether it's the original card or the token.
This is a difference between having a token become a copy and having a token created as a copy.
100%.
Yeah.
Creating it gives you the full card front and back. If you're making it a copy, though, it's entering as that one side that has its copyable characteristics visible to the card in the game, and that's that.
Okay. We've got Namor the Submariner for 1 blue. Personal story about myself. A Namor Submariner comic, I believe, is the first comic I ever read.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. This is my older brother's collection. I totally destroyed that comic. He was really, really mad. But first one I ever read. And I was like, who is this guy? This isn't any of the cool. This isn't Spider-Man. It's just some fish dude. But he's got little wings on his feet. This makes no sense. How's he flying with foot wings? Anyway, Namor, the Submariner, 1 blue for a star 4 legendary creature mutant merfolk villain. He is flying. Namor's power is equal to the number of merfolk you control. And then whenever you cast a non-creature spell with 1 or more blue mana symbols in its mana cost, create that many 1/1 blue merfolk creature tokens. Okay. Now that ability, Namor's power is equal to the number of merfolk you control, that is a characteristic defining ability. It works in all zones, not just the battlefield. So if you have something that, like, search your library for a creature card with power 4 or greater, and you've got 5 merfolk on the battlefield, you can find Namor the Submariner. Also, his last ability, which is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you make a bunch of blue dudes. That last ability is going to resolve before the spell that caused it to trigger does. Okay, it's going to resolve even if that spell that triggered its ability is countered or leaves the stack some other way. All right, so you're still getting your 1/1 blue merfolk creature tokens even if it's countered.
I always, for my entire life, whenever I would read this character's name in a comic, I always read it as the Submariner. And when somebody said it out loud as a Submariner, I was like, what is wrong with you? What?
Why are you putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable?
Yeah, it was entirely that. Everybody, so many of my readers out there get how that is. It's just weird. All right. I love this next card.
The Submariner. Okay, nope. Go on.
I mean, come on. It fits. How would it not be that? Anyways. Next card, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. For a single white mana is a legendary creature human spy hero with a power and toughness 2/1. He has the power-up ability of Wooburg, white, blue, black, red, green. Put 2 +1/+1 counters. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on Nick Fury. Then look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a hero, equipment, or vehicle card from among them onto the battlefield. If it's a double-faced card, you may transform it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and reminder text for power-up. All right, so other than being like, I think this is a card that the CDH community is kind of wigging out about as like the best 1-drop commander for 5 color you can have. Interesting, cool, knock yourself out, have fun. This card specifically calls out double-faced cards, so let's talk about what's weird about them. If the card you put onto the battlefield is a double-faced card, then it's going to come in with its front face up as a default. We already touched on this earlier, that if an instruction tells you to put the card onto the battlefield from somewhere, doesn't tell you to cast it or play it, then it has to have its front face up. Doesn't matter if it's a transforming double-faced card, modal double-faced card, or a transforming modal double-faced card. Any enters abilities on the front side of it will trigger, not on the back. Once you choose whether or not to transform that permanent and then put the rest of the cards on the bottom, only then will those triggers be put onto the stack. So you're going to have the back face of it up, and then that trigger is going to go onto the stack. However, everyone's favorite mechanic does mess with this a little bit. So the front face is up as a default, unless the permanent is a double-faced card with daybound, nightbound, and it's night when the permanent enters. In that instance, then the back face would enter as the face up. Hope you've been keeping track of that the whole game. We all know you haven't.
Whole podcast. What are we? Are we day or night? I don't know.
I have no idea. It's probably night. And actually to that, for tournaments, remember, if somebody calls you and goes, Judge, we had a day-night card on like turn 2. We killed it and then played 7 more turns and have no idea whether it's day or night. Remember that the default for if players forget to keep track of day-night after it's been introduced to the game is to leave the game as night, as that is far more likely to be the state of the game. It's more likely that you spent a turn without casting any spells than, oh, you've most recently cast 2 or more spells in a turn.
Yeah, and no one's able to remember. That's the key thing. If no one's able to remember.
Yeah, odds are it is likely night because you don't remember not doing anything. So
next up is Okoye, Dora Milaje leader for 3 and a white, is a 3/2 legendary creature, human warrior hero. When Okoye enters, create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, and attacking creature tokens you control have first strike. Okay, so let's talk about how first strike works. Okay, we declare attackers. Creatures that are attacking, they have first strike. Blockers are declared. Then, if any of those creatures have first strike, we go into a combat damage step where only creatures with first strike or double strike deal damage. Damage is resolved. Opportunity to cast spells. And then we go to another combat damage damage step for regular strike and creatures with double strike. Now, it is possible that you will have a bunch of creatures be able to deal first strike damage. And if Okoye gets blocked by, let's say, a 3/3 also with first strike, Okoye can die in the first strike combat damage step, meaning all my other creatures that had first strike that just dealt first strike damage now have don't have first strike for the normal combat damage step. So does that just mean I made a double strike at home, Timu double strike?
don't know about that.
No, because the so first strike, after first strike, and then when you go to regular strike combat damage, that is basically reserved for creatures that didn't deal combat damage during the first strike combat damage step, and creatures with double strike. So you can't let a creature deal first strike damage in the first strike step, cause it to lose first strike, and then let it deal combat damage in the second combat damage step. It's not a thing you can do. All right. That's all.
You must feel pretty triumphant about walking through all of that one.
Yeah, I was feeling very fisky.
Oh, yeah. B-Pro always likes to get a little fisky during JudgeCast recording nights.
You see, it's not so much worse when you say it, please.
I figured as much.
Right.
Next up, we have Political Triumph. For a single white mana, it is an enchantment plan. Whenever a creature you control enters, scry 1 and put a plan counter on this enchantment. When the 4th plan counter is put on this enchantment, sacrifice it, draw a card, and put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you controlled. So, if this card is no longer on the battlefield when its last ability goes to resolve, you're not going to be able to sacrifice it. Well, obviously, it's not there anymore. You can't sacrifice it if it's not on the battlefield. But you will still draw a card and put counters on creatures, because it is not a if you do or when you do type of wording. It's just one of the items you do in a list of other things. So sacrifice it, draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those are all individual things on a list. You do as much of them as you can.
Okay. So next up, we have Quicksilver Brash Blur. Okay. And in my head, I was like, Blash Blur, Blash. Yeah, it's Brash Blur could be a tongue twister. Anyway, for for a single red, it's a 1/1 legendary creature mutant hero. If Quicksilver Brash Blur is in your opening hand, you may begin with him on the battlefield. He has haste, and then power up for 4 to red, put a +1/+1 counter, and a double strike counter on Quicksilver. All right. So your opening hand is the hand that you decide to keep after you finish taking all of your mulligans. Okay. During the game, with anyone with pre-game actions, what the players call it, or players with cards that allow actions to be taken from a player's opening hand, take all those actions in any order. Okay, the starting player takes all such actions first in any order, followed by each player in turn order. Okay, so yeah, and then there's a note here that says Marvel Snap did it first. I'm guessing if Quicksilver's in your opening hand, you can play it before the first turn starts.
Effectively, not even that. If it's in your deck, it just shows up on turn 1 on the battlefield.
Oh.
Yeah, it's sweet. Anyways,
Okay.
Marvel Snap did it. It's hard for Marvel Snap
Marvel
not to do
Snap
half of
did
these
it.
cards realistically. Yes. All right, next up we have Captain, no, not Captain, Red Guardian Super Soldier. For 2 and a white, it is a 2/2 legendary creature, human soldier villain with flash, and when Red Guardian enters, destroy target creature an opponent controls that dealt damage this turn. So here, target creature an opponent controls that dealt damage this turn is the entirety of the targeting restriction. So it has to be a creature that an opponent controls that also dealt damage this turn. Now, notably, it doesn't say what kind of damage. It didn't have to attack you and deal combat damage. Maybe it got into a fight with another creature and dealt damage that way. Maybe it dealt damage as the result of a triggered ability that dealt damage to an opponent, that sort of thing. If it dealt damage is the only thing that it cares about here.
It doesn't even care if the opponent changes during the turn.
True. 100%.
Yep. All right. Next up is Rewrite History. This is 2 and a blue for an enchantment plan that says whenever one or more creatures you control become tapped, draw a card, then discard a card, and then put a plan counter on this enchantment. Okay? And then when the 4th plan counter is put on this enchantment, sacrifice it. When you do, reflexive trigger. When you do, return up to 2 target instance and or sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand.
Nice.
So first off, becoming tapped means you are going from an untapped state to a tapped state. A creature that is already tapped cannot become tapped again. All right.
Yep.
Second thing is you don't actually choose your targets for Rewrite History's last ability when it is put on the stack. It's a reflexive trigger. So we put the trigger on the stack that says when the 4th plan counter is put on this enchantment, sacrifice it. When you do, that's a reflexive trigger. Return up to 2 target creatures. So you can target 1 creature, 2 creatures. You can even target 0. Sorry, I'm saying creatures.
Yeah, you are.
This is instants and or sorceries, right?
Yep.
You can actually target 0. Like that's a thing. You can do that.
Yeah.
I guess that would kind of suck.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. What else would suck is if the entire world was taken over by a robot domination. For 3 and a black, robot domination is an enchantment plan that says whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you draw a card, lose 1 life, and put a plan counter on this enchantment. When the 3rd plan counter is put on this enchantment, sacrifice it and create 3 2/2 colorless robot villain artifact creature tokens. So the first ability is very specific. Triggers that happen when a card goes into a graveyard, quote, from anywhere, behaves a little bit differently than dies triggers, for example. So if you were to animate a non-creature card and it dies, like for example, we had that I Am Iron Man card from earlier. Let's say you animated a non-creature card, it died. The first trigger would not actually trigger because it looks to what the card is when it is in the graveyard. And in the graveyard, it's not a creature card. Dies triggers look back in time to see what the card was when it died to see if it would trigger or not. Now, on the flip side, if you have a bear cub and you enchant it with something like Imprisoned in the Moon, and so it's no longer a creature on the battlefield, it will trigger robot domination if it gets destroyed and put into the graveyard, because when it is put into the graveyard, it is a creature card that has been put into the graveyard from anywhere. And it looks at it being a creature card at that moment.
With the from anywhere, from a timing standpoint, when you talk about triggers, triggers in general look at the board immediately after the event occurred and say, do I have anything that triggered? Like if you think about when this creature enters the battlefield, draw a card. Okay. We don't look at how the creature existed before it entered the battlefield. We look at it after the event happens. So typically, whenever whenever a spell is cast, it's like, okay, the spell just got cast. We don't look before the event, before the spell was cast, to do the trigger. So in general, triggers look immediately after the event occurred. Hey, did a thing just happen? Okay. This trigger is the same from anywhere. It's looking after the event happened. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Where it gets a little confusing is leaves the battlefield triggers like dies, what Marcos was talking about, have a special carve out that actually look back in time before to see how the creature existed before the trigger happened. Okay.
Yep.
So that's the exception. So we're talking about like put into your graveyard from anywhere like it's some exception. It's not. It's actually the way every other trigger in the game works, with the exception of leaves the battlefield triggers, like dies.
Right.
Okay, that's
which
the
is just one of the more popular ones that we have, and it happens all the time, so people assume it to be just like the default.
Right. But you come here, like you can listen to some other YouTuber podcast or whatever and get like how this stuff interacts. Like what cards are the best pick in what draft, or what cards are going to be good for standard. We're going to sit here talking about time traveling triggers.
Yep.
And one wonders why we don't have 1 million views.
Niche of a niche of a niche.
Yes.
Is the answer to that one. So, if robot domination is put into your graveyard from the battlefield at the same time that one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard, its first ability won't trigger at all. Token creatures dying won't cause this to trigger either because they're tokens, and tokens are famously not cards. And if the last ability triggers, but then robot domination isn't on the battlefield anymore, you can't sacrifice it, but the other effect will still happen. The rest of the ability doesn't rely on you sacrificing it. So we can actually look at the last two cards and really see the difference here. We have robot domination that just says sacrifice it and create 3/2/2 colorless robot villain artifact creature tokens, whereas rewrite history says sacrifice it, period. When you do this.
All right. Next up is Scientist Supreme of AIM for blue and a white. Blue and a white. Blue and a black. It is a 2/2 legendary creature. I'm sorry. I'm not going to call it the Scientist of AIM. It's Nick Fury, agent of SHIELD. Thank you very much.
Oh. I just thought you were going to start talking about what your away message was. Some passive-aggressive comment.
Or is that ICQ? Okay. Okay, Supreme Scientist of AIM, AOL Instant Messenger. So, is a 2/2 legendary creature, human scientist villain. Pay 2 life, copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an artifact source. You may choose new targets for the copy. You know what? We already talked about this for creature sources and stuff like that. So let's just talk real quick. Again, how do we tell the difference between activated abilities and triggered abilities? Triggered abilities have when, whenever, and at. I'm going to say this again. Not if, not as. How do you tell an activated ability? It's got a colon.
Right back to the colon.
Right back to the colon. Right in the colon. Okay. Artifact sources is different from artifact. Okay. Artifact typically refers to an artifact permanent on the battlefield. Artifact card refers to a physical card with the word artifact on it. Artifact spell refers to a spell on the stack. Artifact source is just any of those things that generated an activated or triggered ability. Okay, yeah. And the copy is going to resolve before the original ability does.
Nailed it.
Yep. Abilities that say that a triggered ability triggers an additional time won't apply to copying the triggered ability. So if you have something that's like, hey, whenever something triggers, it triggers an additional time. Nope. You're putting the copy on the stack. You're not getting an extra copy. So there.
Yep. All right. From one of my favorite Marvel movies recently, Thunderbolts, we have the Sentry Golden Guardian. I have to say the flavor on this card is amazing. The Sentry Golden Guardian is a legendary creature, human hero for 3 and a white. He's a 5/5. He has flying. He has vigilance. He has indestructible. When the sentry enters, target opponent creates the Void, a legendary 5/5 black horror villain creature token with flying, indestructible, and the Void attacks each combat if able. Beautiful. So, if the Void token that is created by the sentry can't attack for any reason, like it's tapped, or it has summoning sickness, or it is, just says it cannot attack, then it doesn't attack.
He's just tired.
Simple enough. He's a sleepy boy. It takes a lot out of you to void people into a black spot of non-existence.
Yep.
Yeah. If there would be a cost associated with having the Void attack, its controller doesn't have to pay any cost to allow it to attack. You are not required to pay those costs. So you can get around that requirement to attack by just being like, well, I'm not going to pay that. And then, well, I can't force you to, tap your resources, tap your manas and do the things. Just, all right, fine. Then don't attack with it then. NBD.
All right. Next up is the Serpent Society. I thought this was an Invincible. Anyway.
Is it?
They got a bunch of snake-themed dudes.
Cobra Commander, go!
Right. This I command. All right. One black and a green for a 3/4 legendary creature human snake villain. It's got death touch. It's got ward. Get 5 poison counters. What the?
It's nuts. I love this so much.
First time I read that text, holy. Whenever another creature you control with death touch dies, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature of their choice. So if you've got 10 or more poison counters on you at any time the state-based actions are checked, you're going to lose the game. So, you can't respond to gaining them counters. And, if you could, what are you going to do? Cast leeches or something? You got poisoned out. Just deal with it. That's insane.
This card is so ridiculous. I love it so much.
It's the dumbest thing ever. All right.
It's awesome.
I enjoy this card.
Yeah. Right. We got there. That's a happy B-Pro.
And so here's the funny thing. If you want with all these cards that like counter copy triggered abilities. I'm gonna kill your Serpent Society. It's like I'm going to copy that ward ability.
Yeah.
Crap.
If only you could force them to pay it.
Right. Well, if you
control them,
Cosmic Cube. If you get all your plan counters on the Cosmic Cube, this is so stupid.
Yes. So good.
I want to make
it is probably the card that has made me like actively react to it more out of any other card in this set. Like just that ward get 5 poison. Like
I didn't see this card before right now.
Oh my god. It was one of the first ones revealed, and people were losing their freaking minds.
Okay, continue.
All right. Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. 1 and a green for a legendary creature, human warrior hero, 2/2. You may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. Tap, add 2 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to activate abilities of creature sources. So again, as though those creatures had haste. This isn't granting haste to anything. So you cannot attack with any of those creatures if they had just come into play. You can just activate abilities of creatures you control that have the tap ability as part of the cost, though, because as though they had haste is what it's allowing here. Now, remember what we said about creature sources and artifact sources a couple cards ago? This applies to creature sources here. So when you're talking about activated abilities of creature sources, that could be your power-up activated abilities. It could be Eternalize for a creature card that is in your graveyard because it is a creature source, as the source of that ability is a creature card. I think we've kind of beat that whole discussion about what is a card type source into the ground at this point.
Yeah, it was just interesting. Like, I actually got asked a question, like, is Eternalize an activated ability of a creature source? And I looked at that and I was like, huh, yeah, it is. All right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Got there.
Cool. All right. I'm not going to talk about Spider-Man to the rescue, because it's just, our only comment is just like, really, another Spider-Man? Okay.
There's so many Spider-Mans.
So many. Is it Spider-Man or Spider-Mans?
I think it's Spider's-Men.
Spidersman? It's Grand's Spidermans. It's Grand's Prix. Okay, supervillain lockup, 1 and a white, enchantment, flash. When this enchantment enters, exile target tapped creature an opponent controls until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. Alright. Real simple here. If supervillain lockup is removed from the battlefield before this trigger resolves, the targeted creature will not be exiled. That's it. That whole rule about if an ability with a duration would end before it would begin, it doesn't begin.
All right, I sense a conspiracy afoot. We have a Thunderbolts conspiracy for 3 and a black. This is an enchantment, not a plan. Just a plain old enchantment with flash that says whenever a villain you control dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a finality counter on it. That creature is a hero in addition to its other types. It has the reminder text, if a creature with a finality counter on it would die, exile it instead. So the creature that returns is a hero in addition to its other types from the moment it enters the battlefield. Assuming it's a creature when it enters, of course. If the villain that died was some animated artifact, for example, then it's not going to have the creature subtype of hero when it returns to the battlefield, though. Hero is specifically just a subtype that is for the creature card type. Or I assume kindred as well. Finality counters, though, those will work on any permanent, not just creatures. If a permanent with a finality counter on it would be put into the graveyard, you exile it instead. However, that is not like flashback. I know some people will confuse a finality counter like flashback, meaning that if it were to go anywhere other than exile, put it in exile instead. Not the case. You can return a creature with a finality counter on it to its owner's hand, and it'll go to their hand. It's just if it were to die and go to the graveyard, then you're going to exile it instead as a replacement effect. And similar to the other counter we were discussing earlier, the shield counter, finality counters are not keyword counters. They do not give abilities to the creatures. If the creature loses all abilities, the finality counter still applies if it were to die, because the finality counter has rules text associated with it. It doesn't grant any abilities to the creature. So if it loses all abilities, finality counters just don't care. Get into exile if you're going to die.
Home stretch. Ultron, Artificial Malevolence for 3 generic mana. It is a 3 mana 2/4 legendary artifact creature robot villain. Whenever another non-token artifact creature you control enters, you may pay 2. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it. If the token isn't a creature, it becomes a 2/2 robot villain in addition to its other types. Alright, back to copy effects. The copy is going to be an exact Xerox copy of the original artifact. Nothing else except the listed exceptions, which is a lot, because if it isn't a creature, it's a 2/2 robot villain in addition to its other types. If the copied artifact is copying something else, then the token will enter as whatever that artifact copied. So this is copy effect, like when you're going through the copy layer, it's like a copy of a copy of a copy. When you copy it, you see like the last thing is copied. So all the copies kind of stack before you make something a copy of something else. I don't know if I explained that right. I said copy a lot.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Any enters the battlefield abilities of the copied artifact will trigger when this token enters. Replacement effects that are based on as this enters or this enters with are also going to work since the object is entering the battlefield. And if the token isn't a creature, it's not going to become a 2/2 robot villain until after it has entered the battlefield. Okay, the way this is worded, it's whenever a non-token creature enters, you may pay 2. So it's going to enter, then the trigger goes on the stack where you get to decide to pay 2 or not. Um, uh, uh, then you create, if you do, you create a token that's a copy of it. So the creation happens. It is on the battlefield. Then the game goes, okay, is this a creature or not? And if it's not a creature, then it's going to become a 2/2 robot villain. Okay, so things that trigger when a creature enters the battlefield isn't going to trigger off of this token copy.
Yeah, because the game has to determine what it is in order to determine if it isn't a creature. And the only way it can do that is if it sees the copy of what it, the actual token copy of what it's copying first, right?
I mean, you could do it with some awkward wording, but
yeah, but this is easier, awkward. I guess.
It'd be awkward.
It'd be awkward. I'd get in a fight with the designer about that for sure.
All right.
All right, next up we have Wolverine, Fierce Fighter. For 2, a red and a green. He's a 3/5 legendary creature, mutant berserker hero with haste. And when Wolverine enters, he fights up to 1 other target creature. If damage would be dealt to Wolverine, instead that damage is dealt, but all other damage already dealt to him is healed.
What?
So this is an interesting card.
What does that mean?
I've never seen that word.
I haven't seen that since the last time I saw a YouTube video.
This is interesting because this terminology of healed isn't really standardized before this set. So that last ability is a replacement effect. It's not going to use the stack and it can't be responded to. And in order to heal damage from a permanent, you have to remove all damage that was currently marked on it. So if Wolverine has been lightning bolted, so he has 3 damage marked on him from that first lightning bolt, and then you lightning bolt him again, he would have the 3 damage marked from the new lightning bolt, and the other 3 damage would be healed, leaving him with 3 damage marked on him, making Wolverine pretty tough to kill. Nice. I was wondering how they were going to do his healing factor.
They really just don't want to regenerate.
They really don't.
All right. So next up, we're going to talk about... See, I didn't think we were doing DC cards. So here we have Wonder Man, Hollywood Hero, which I guess is like a gender-swapped Wonder Woman. I don't know. Wonder Man, Hollywood Hero. Yeah, this is a DC Universe card. I don't know. Anyway, 3 red for a 4/4 legendary creature, human performer hero. It's flying. Each power-up ability of permanence you control can be activated an additional time. And then power up, 5 red, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Wonder Man. So here's a thing. You probably noticed that nearly all of the power-up abilities put +1/+1 counters on things. And the reason for that is because it helps with memory. Did I already activate this power-up ability? It's got counters on it, so probably. It helps, like, especially if you've had multiple Wonder Mans or Wonder Men or Wonders Man. So, Wonder Man's ability allows you to use a power-up abilities an additional time. Again, if you can blink Wonder Man and it leaves and it comes back, well, you've already activated the power-up ability twice, then you've hit the maximum that Wonder Man allows. This is kind of like the you can play an additional land, right? It just ups the total number of count. So it's not this brings the number of times that you can activate a power-up ability to 2. It doesn't like, oh, well, I've got it in play. It's now 2. I'm going to blink it, and now it's up to 3. I'm going to blink it, and now it's up to 4. No, this is just saying it's 2. Have you activated it twice already? Cool, you're done. Felt a little bit
3 is right there. Out.
Yeah. You activated it once already, you're done. So, if you have multiple Wonders Man on the field, you can you added additional time to each Wonder Man. So if you have 2 Wonders Man on the field, you can power up a total of 3 times per permanent with power up. And yes, Wonder Man lets you use his own power up ability twice. Not that I mean, it's 7 mana for 2+1/+1 counters. So I guess sure.
You really want that discount. Otherwise, oof, it's rough.
Right.
All right. I think we're almost done talking about this World Within Worlds, which is our final card for the evening. Worlds Within Worlds, 5 blue, green for a sorcery. Exile all creatures. Each player may put any number of creature cards from their hand onto the battlefield. Then, put all cards exiled this way into their owner's hands. Exile Worlds Within Worlds. I was going to say, how often do you get a blue and green board wipe? Oh, no, that makes more sense. Blue and green just turns one thing into another thing. Yeah, that sounds about right. So, interesting thing about this card is there's kind of a particular process for executing the instructions of this spell. So, first off, everything will be exiled. So, you'll take all the creatures you have on the battlefield and just kind of put them in a little pile sideways, and they're exiled. Then, in turn order, starting with the player whose turn it is, which, since this is a sorcery, is probably the person who casts this spell, but, you know, CDH is a thing. Each player will choose any number of creature cards from their hand to put onto the field, but they won't reveal what those are until everyone in the game is done. So let's say me, Bryan, and Charles are all playing, and the turn order is me, I'm active player, I just cast Worlds Within Worlds, then Bryan, then Charles in turn order. Then I will choose my creatures first. I'll put them on the field, probably face down to hide their faces. And then Bryan will make his choice. Then Charles will make his choice. And again, they'll all put their creatures onto the battlefield, just not revealing them until everybody is done choosing. Then we will all reveal our cards simultaneously, and they'll all enter simultaneously. Any enters triggers are going to trigger, but they'll wait to go onto the stack until you finish resolving Worlds Within Worlds. Then you're going to take all those creatures that you put into that exile pile that were exiled as a part of this spell at the beginning and put them into their owner's hands. Then you're going to exile Worlds Within Worlds instead of putting it into your graveyard. And then and only then will the enters triggers go onto the stack in active player, next active player order. So my triggers would go onto the stack, then Bryan, then Charles. Simple, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
That's it. We did it.
Yeah.
We got through it.
So, thoughts on this set? This feels more like a legitimate Magic set than Turtles or Spider-Man.
Oh, yes, 100%. We actually got B-Pro to giggle with glee at a card that we reviewed this
I mean,
set.
it wasn't it was award cost, which was just like, this is absurd. Like, and also the Sauron card that's like, cure cancer, turn people into dinosaurs. That was amusing.
Yeah.
Like once you acknowledge the absurdity of you're in a Marvel universe, that's kind of funny.
Definitely.
Anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I don't want to say it's fine. Like, I think I'm gonna feel a lot different about Star Trek because, like, all of these cards, like, it's Iron Man, it's Thor, but it's not people. Like, Star Trek's gonna be William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy. You know, those are people.
Yeah, we don't
Iron
have
Man's
to worry
not a
about
people.
encountering the Serpent Society at a restaurant at a convention.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna go to the Serpent Society person and be like, here, can you sign my card? Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like real people being on the cards. So Iron Man's like kind of okay. It's fine, I
Yeah.
guess. I mean, this does feel like an actual real set. So
Yes.
okay.
I agree. For me, I'm kind of an amateur-ish custom card designer, just hobby of mine. I enjoy Magic design a lot. Like, I'll often talk about design elements more than other things, and I'll catch interesting design things because that's just something that really fascinates me. And the first custom set I ever tried to design was an MCU Marvel set because, like, why not? It's a cool property. It has a lot of interesting characters that you can create interesting designs around. And it's interesting to me because when I first tried doing that, I was doing it around the time of like Cons of Tarkir and we'll call it the more traditional Magic sets of the past, where, you know, you would have 5, maybe 10 legendary creatures in the whole set. You wouldn't have legendary creatures at common. You would just have like a very structured old school Magic set. And I found it was very hard to get everything you want to see in a Marvel set into a custom Magic set if you are bound by those limitations.
Well, just
And now
remember,
they're
there's going to be
not.
4 more of these things, so they can spread them
Yes.
out. Oh, jeez.
There's going to be a bunch more of
I
these at
think
least.
I think I am going to be kind of sick of things when there's like 40 Captain Americas and 30 Iron Mans.
100%. I'm worried about the long-term implications of this set, specifically with the Infinity Stones. I'm really hoping there's like 2 more sets at most, and one of them is just a Thanos themed like
they just
Infinity War
give
set.
Up. Be like, we'll just what's the 3 left? Just put them all in.
Yeah, just put them all in a Thanos themed Infinity War event set and make it be the big thing there. Have the full powered up Infinity Gauntlet that's going to break Modern and it'll be fine. But like, I don't know. I agree with you that this feels much more like a traditional Magic set that I would get excited by. I'm actually excited by this set. I am a Marvel fanboy. I do enjoy a lot of the Marvel characters, and a lot of these were really interesting designs for me to look at and go, how did you make Cloak and Dagger? How did you create an Absorbing Man in Magic? And I'm like, yeah, they nailed a lot of these. These are really cool designs, and they're very flavorful. But if they had done a one-off, like, here's your Marvel main set, and this was it, I would have been happy. And I would have loved to have just left it there. And like, see all the Infinity Stones in here, give me a gauntlet, and we're done. Like, let's move on from there and nail it. But we'll see what the future holds. I enjoy this set. I think it's really well done, flavorfully. It's much better done than Spider-Man was or Ninja Turtles. So kudos to everybody involved with making it what it is, for sure. But yeah, let's not have 18 more Marvel sets, please. I miss Magic sets. Like, I was really excited for Lorwyn and Strixhaven because they were returns to places I want to go as well. Like, I don't want to ignore Magic for the sake of going to another cool IP.
So,
you know?
Here's the thing I actually found out I learned. Like, I was excited about Lorwyn, but then when the set actually came out, I was just sort of like, eh. And same thing on Strixhaven. I think the fact that, let's see how to say this. Like, I used to follow the Magic story, and I used to look at the cards and kind of see the story on the cards, but the story now is so fragmented, I guess, and it's interrupted by this Marvel stuff that it's just kind of like there's no point.
Yeah.
Or at least that's my feeling is like,
I agree.
Why, like, I don't actually know what's really been going on in the story since the Omen Path thing. Like, people wore hats for a while, and then we visited New York twice, and I like, is Kellen still around? Is he still doing things? I haven't seen a card in a while.
No, I think that was a 1-year-long thing, and then
Was it
Kellen
only 1 year?
buggered off.
Oh, it felt like jeez.
It
felt a lot
the
longer.
frequency of sets makes it feel so much more, and I agree with you. I was huge into the Magic story. I used to devour Magic story. I was such a Vorthos for a very, very long time, and I can't do it anymore because it's not something that I can keep up with on a regular basis. Like, my story has been interrupted by Ninja Turtles and Final Fantasy, and like, when Edge of Eternities came out, the next Magic set wasn't until Lorwyn. And it was like, well, what happened in Edge of Eternities? Why were we in space? Tezzeret was there, I guess.
Yeah, why are we in space?
Right,
I
why
don't
are
know.
we in space? And oh wait, now we're going to space for Star Trek? Like,
Yeah.
it's just that's a thing.
Why are we in space? To get you used to the idea of us being in space for Star Trek. That's why we're in space.
Probably. Or I wouldn't be surprised if that was an aspect of it for sure. All right, but I think we kind of covered everything there. We're not doing any of the extra Marvel stuff, any of the borderless source material cards or commander cards. This has been more than enough. But I think that's it. Do we have anything else we want to touch on before we wrap it up?
Nope.
Dope. So, since Charles isn't here, I will take up the mantle. That's our episode. We've all been a bit busy lately, in case you've noticed the timing between release schedules lately. So the aforementioned special episode we previewed the last time we did an episode is coming and should be our very next episode in a couple of weeks from the release of this episode. It should be a fun one that may make Bryan and Charles even more excited than they were in this episode, right?
We're talking
Charles?
about Team Trios Limited?
Oh, yeah. Or, you know, something else with a bunch of people where we talk about some of our favorite formats to judge. Well, one of our favorite formats to judge in particular. Wink. Until then, you can send us an email at judgecast@gmail.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on BlueSky at judgecast.bsky.social, and on Twitter at JudgeCast. Don't forget to check out our show notes for these links and more, including our YouTube channel, where you can find this podcast and our L1 Essentials series. It is fully wrapped up, 25 episodes. Send it to all of your L1 candidates or anyone looking to learn what they need to know about the rules. It's awesome. We put a lot of work into it. It was really fun to do.
Was it a lot of fun to do?
For a while, yeah. Until we got really busy. For a while until we got really, really busy, and then it became a challenge.
It was fun up until about episode 13, and then it became, oh God.
And while you're at it, hop onto our Discord server for judges new and old, fans, and anyone who supports the judging community. On behalf of Charles Feather, who likes to keep it fair, I'm Marcos Sanchez, and I keep it fun.
I'm Bryan's Prerelease, and your Baron helmet's so big.